Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us once again. I cannot wait to share this one with you. Before we get started, I'd like to thank some folks that we always thank. We'd like to thank brassandwinds.com, Quinn, the Eskimo company. We here at Willow Music are often in need of recommendations for brass and wind instruments, and we always go to brassandwinds.com. They've been great to us, and we think they'll be great for you. Check them out at brassandwinds.com. You're watching True or MU, The Truth About Music, where you can watch interviews such as this one to get you a little deeper into music than perhaps you knew you could go. We also have online classes for you and features and various things. Check us out at True or MU, The Truth About Music. Now, several months ago, I had the privilege of interviewing Adam Cohen, a friend and film composer. I'm going to talk to you about him in just a minute. He and I talked about film scoring and the business of film scoring and the highs and lows of film scoring. We did everything except talk about how to score films. So he was kind enough to say, hey, let me come back and we can actually talk about the nitty gritty of how to do it. And we've come up with a really, really cool way of doing that. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but let me introduce our guest to you. Adam Cohen is a film and TV composer with over 20 years of projects to his name. He has scored for the TV show Psych, as well as the 3 follow-up films. His other projects include work on The Incredibles, The Muppet Wizard of Oz, many more shows, films, and video games. Adam Cohen, welcome back.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's great. Great to have you. Thank you so much for coming back. So why don't we talk a little bit about what it is we're going to do here? Do you want to explain or do you want me to?
I'm happy to start, and then you take it away if you want to clarify anything. I mean, we just discussed, wouldn't it be fun if we could look at something without music and then look at something with music and talk about process and how you get from one to the other, and what it's like as a film composer to start with a blank slate, sometimes with temp music to give you some guidelines and sometimes nothing, and just go, how do you begin the process of what my process is. I mean, there is no right process. There's just my process for me, and this is what works for me, and we can kind of discuss by looking at a film with has no music, and then what the score ended up being.
Yes, thank you. That's great. So audience, what we have here is a very lucky situation. It's very rare that you can find a film before it's been scored that you can actually look at. Adam has provided us with a 15-minute film with no music at all so that we can actually see it and listen to it, without the soundtrack to see what that's like. And then he and I are going to discuss it. We're going to watch it together, sort of scene by scene. And I'm a composer and I've scored about 2 films, so I know just enough to take the challenge of try to figure out how I would score it. I'm just kind of a beginner. Now, Adam is the expert, and he can take his perspective and he can tell me, well, this is how I would do it. This is how I might do it. And then we can actually listen to the finished score of the film. So
right. I mean, we discussed, obviously it would be great to use, scenes from the TV show Psych or some of the other projects I've worked on. But the reality is those projects are owned and used and operated by big studios, and then you have to get their permission. So luckily, a good friend of mine from our school, Oberlin, wrote and starred in this film, and so I asked her permission since it's kind of her film, and she said, go ahead. And she came to me about a year and a half ago and said, is there any chance that you could score this for me? So I said, of course.
What's your friend's name?
Her name is Jennifer Carcillo. She was a violinist at Oberlin when I was there. We used to play a lot of chamber music together, and she still does that, but she writes and directs and acts and all the time. So this was a perfect use, and it's also it's good to see something that is more independent, and so you can really get a sense of what it looks like to look at something without the music, and then see what happens after you put the music in.
Thank you, Jennifer, very much for providing this for us. Friends, I have placed the entire unscored and scored film at the end of this video. So if you want to play along, you can either just watch us go through it frame by frame, or if you want to watch the whole film without the music just to see what it's like, you can do that. If you want to ruin the surprise for yourself, you can watch the scored version right after that. But if you don't, you can just watch the unscored version and then come back and join us here, and you can make your own decisions about how you might score it or what you think you'd like to do. We're going to have some fun. All right, Adam, are you ready to start?
I'm ready to start. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Now, before we actually do the beginning of the film, I've had the chance to watch this a couple times to just to get the feel of it, and I want to just dart to 14 minutes.
Okay,
Because
great. And you know what? I just want to say, for your credit, I was pushy about, hey, well, let's try a real experiment, Adam. I'll give you both versions, but I want you only, before this interview, I only want you to watch the unscored one. So you've yet to see, hopefully, if you abided by my deep desires, you haven't yet watched the version with the music. So this will be the first time you'll get to see that too, so we can discuss it and you can go, oh, why would you do that? Or, oh, I like that. Or, oh, that was, what a ridiculously silly idea. How dare you? Anyway,
that's
so I
right.
just wanted to tell everyone that because that was kind of the goal. So
That's kind of you. Yes, that's right. I've played fair. I've only watched the unscored one. I watched it twice.
great,
And so you're the scorer of the film. The scored version will be your work.
correct.
Okay, great. So I wanted to start with 14 minutes in. It's a 15-minute film, and I want to go to 14 because there's something in 14 that is important to me that I wanted to talk about before we start on how I would start the film.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you want me to just play this here?
Play it from, yeah, right about where the daughter is coming down the stairs. That should be
Okay.
at about 14. You can stop it there. Okay, so the reason I wanted you to show that clip is because it's the only music in the unscored version. And it was interesting to me that it was in there. And it occurred to me that whatever the violinist is playing, I don't know the actual piece the violinist is playing, but it would be nice to use it as a kind of a leitmotif or a kind of a basis for the beginning, because this is the pivotal scene in the film. It would be nice to foreshadow it. So
Mhm.
let's go ahead and get started with the beginning of the film. And we can watch as much of it as you like. And you can
Well,
stop it when you're ready.
I will just say something that I thought you were even going to say. I'll take it one step further. Whether you want to use it or not, you've got another issue, which is you've got a scene that, as you said, is actually a very pivotal scene. And you've got music that's already existing there, and you've got somebody on screen playing it. And thus comes, what do you do with that as a composer? Because that the music that they're playing may not help the pivotal scene, and yet if you write some pivotal scene music, that's going to completely clash with the. Yeah, so that's a whole other decision. We had a lot of decisions to make, and it's very interesting you said that. So we can start. So you want to go back to the beginning? Let's go back.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning. And I actually like that music. I think it works for that scene. But
Mhm. It
yeah,
does. Well, and I want to say this right up front. There is no one way to score anything. There is no one right way, unless maybe you're John Williams, because I seem to think he only scores the right way. But no, I mean, even that, there's no right way to score anything, and so my choices are purely mine, and there are only a million different ways that work, and I have my choices that I make, and you would have yours, and it's not to say one's better. I do think what we want to get into is using what the goal is in terms of storytelling and what the goal of the music is, or the point of the music. So you want me to play from the beginning?
yeah, and you can stop it when you're ready to ask me questions about how I would score.
Okay, great. Here we go.
You are fortunate Madam has declined the press charges. Well, are you going to loiter there all morning? You are Esther.
Yeah?
You're right on time. Which means you're late.
You know, it's funny. Now that I'm thinking about it a little bit, I actually scored this very linearly. I started at the beginning with the intent of kind of as creating what I would feel would work for me to establish the tone, and next thing you know, I kind of kept pushing forward and ended up scoring it from top to bottom. And as I went through, I went, oh, I'm going to use this here. Oh, this will work great here. Or when I reached a certain point, I thought, oh, I could use this here. This will be great. So I don't always do that. And when you do TV, I'm jumping all the way all over the place and stuff like that. And even film too. You sometimes don't have that opportunity. Um, so that ended up, it wasn't exactly intentional, but it kind of happened. So for me, it was about when I started and sat down with this, and I didn't have a lot of time, which as a composer, film composer, you never have a lot of time. They always want it very quickly. And they want to hear stuff very quickly. And so I had to think about what was the purpose of the story. And I'm assuming now everybody's gone and watched it.
Hang on, before you tell us what you did.
Yeah.
Let me
go ahead. Yes, please.
Yeah, because I don't want to hear what you have to say yet.
Fair.
For me, of course, this scene is interesting because it's generally a comic scene, but it's kind of brutal in the middle. Him throwing her down the stairs is pretty harsh. He's not just, I mean, he's actually physically harming her. And so I think that, I hate to say this, but it needs to be softened somewhat, or else you end up with a bit of a roller coaster ride in that first scene. So I think I'd want to make sure that the music from the beginning of what we saw to the end of what we saw is generally lighthearted, so that it's kind of awful, again, to say that you want to make somebody falling downstairs to be somewhat funny, but you do want to soften it a little bit. Otherwise, you've lost control of what the audience is feeling. So I would, I would take that music that we heard at 14, that violin playing, and I would use either that exact music or that style of music, kind of a Handelian kind of thing, like Handel type thing. Keep it kind of light, make it kind of a classical chamber, something to set the period, something people would have been listening to at that time, something that, that they might have heard at a party, just to set this kind of turn of the century mood and to keep it light.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I will challenge you to, all that makes a lot of sense. And as I said, there's no right way. Now I'm curious what your overall take, what is the story that you want to tell? That to me is as everything. So I approach everything as, what is the story and how do I want to tell it and whose story am I telling? And sometimes in different scenes, you might sometimes shift the story a little bit to tell it from a different position. But for me, overall, it was the main character's story. And I kind of followed her journey. And I decided, very importantly, I needed to help establish who is this person, right? And what are the qualities overall of this person? And what is the quality of the story? So I want to throw that back at you. So, again, I'm putting you on the spot.
I love it. I'm all for it.
Okay, so without thinking about styles or this, what is the story? Who is she? And how do we want to kind of present her? Okay,
well, the whole story is a story of a woman in a subservient position who decides to stand up for herself. That's it in a nutshell. And there's an echo of the story in the woman's daughter, who also has to stand up for herself. So there's a bit of a parallel standing up for oneself thing.
Yeah, I do actually want to say too that Jennifer, who wrote this is based on her true story of her grandmother when she first came to this country. So she's playing her grandmother in San Francisco. So who worked as a maid, basically.
So Jennifer's playing the maid as well, then.
Yeah, Jennifer. That's Jennifer, by the way, playing the main character.
Got it.
I didn't know you didn't realize that. So great. I love that, standing up for herself. So then the question is she the kind of person who found it in herself to stand up, or was she always that person who just had to decide, all right, I play a role, I'm being subservient, but now I stand up for myself, and thus became, for me, the issue. I can leave that back to you, but I can tell you what I thought.
Yes, I think it's time. Let me hear what you got.
So I thought, well, here's what I thought. I think you're exactly right. It's about a woman who stands up for herself. But from the very get-go, this is not a mouseish woman who learns to stand up for herself. This is a mouseish woman. This is a strong woman who's decided at very long down the road, I've had enough. I'm not putting up with this because that's not who I am. So I really felt from the very get-go, I want to establish she's serious, she's strong, and she doesn't take much crap from anyone, kind of thing. But I also don't want it to be harsh either. So it's kind of playing that balance. Your style point is very well thought out, and I thought that too. And to be honest, I actually felt I just don't really want to do things too stylish, even though it is. because I know where it is. I don't necessarily need it. We have little elements of that, and I still touch upon it. So I kind of played around and thought, well, what if I give it a little bit, like hint at the old and hint at the new, and mix it? So do you want me to play that on here? Or
Yes, let's watch what you did with the first minute and 45 seconds of this film.
You are fortunate Madam has declined the press charges. Well, are you going to loiter there all morning? You are Esther.
Yeah?
You're right on time. Which means you're late.
That is fascinating. That is completely different from how I would have done it. That's really cool.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's the point. There isn't a right way. I'm not going to say, oh, well, this is the right way. I actually just started with that vibe. I decided, wouldn't it be fun if I had some, you might be able to hear it directly versus over the speaker, that there's some little groove, quite little percussion groove elements that don't exist in that time. Certainly a lot of the instrumentation does happen from that time. So I just felt like I just wanted to establish that this is a strong moment for her. She's coming to a new job, and it's a strong moment that we see her being thrown down the stairs. Because why? She's been thrown down the stairs because she stole the jewelry. That's why you see the jewelry opens. And so it's a serious moment. And also this guy clearly doesn't have any sense of humor because, you know, you're even just 2 minutes late, you know, watch out. Right. So there is a cartoon element to that too. It's like, you know, I didn't want to play that too hard, but it's definitely, there's a goofball thing.
Yeah. Well, your scoring, first of all, two things I noticed about your scoring. One is it's very television. It's right to the point. It's, you know, reminds me of the shows I used to watch when I was a kid, you know, Love Boat and stuff like that. You know, as soon as you get there, there's no get you warmed up. It's like you're sucked in. So, and
well, I mean, a short film, you have to. I mean, it's almost like, hey, it's time to get in. And by the way, that's another good point. It's something to think about. You're doing a short film. It's like a short story. It's like, it's time to go. You want everybody wrapped. You want everybody's rapt attention. You don't want people to kind of meander. You want them, hey, what's going on? Hey. I mean, it's a little bit like, hey, pay attention. It was kind of a little bit of that. Like, it's time to get going. You know, we don't have time to waste here.
Yes. Okay. And the sense of foreboding is very strong in this. When I watch this now with your music, I think, oh gosh, you know, she's getting herself into trouble. I already know before she gets there that there's something bad going to happen before she even meets the butler.
Yeah, great. Well, so, and by the way, that to me is, we'll talk about that because I end up using that kind of vibe in other places. So do you want to keep going?
Let's go on.
All right.
I told her what would come of hiring that Irish maid. Lady Octavia Huntington.
Rather more plump than I expected. Your uncle vouched for your work ethic. I hope I'm not wrong to trust him.
Oh, my, in Sweden, I took care of the cows all myself.
Good heavens. I dare say your life here will be more refined.
Okay. So right here is, you know, I've set us up with kind of a lighthearted kind of music. And this is where I would change the mood immediately if I were scoring. This staircase scene is the perfect opportunity for your evil queen music. This is where your dark foreboding, da, 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 da. This is where I would put it. Right. Just because I guess I'm feeling the need to exaggerate the characteristics of these characters just a little bit. And so as she comes down, you know, and of course that music would stop in time for her to make her dialogue. It's it remains comic for me. The dialogue remains somewhat comic. So I guess I'm not yet feeling the foreboding of it, but I am curious to know how you scored this.
That's great. Well, so there are a couple of things to think about too. I mean, all that's actually exactly kind of the same thing I was thinking about. You've got we just finished the big scene, the entrance scene, and now she's going into the house. And in a way, it's the music has to carry us into the house, and needs to kind of finalize itself, which kind of you'll see I do. I think it gets us there. We kind of settle in place, and then comes the next moment, comes the introduction. And yes, then thus the interesting thing about doing anything comic, which is how hard do you play comic, because it's so easy to become silly, goofy, and it's not. And yet at the same time, it's not like crazy foreboding, because while she does seem like the evil stepmother from Disney movies, and I think it was purposely shot that way with the queen head, the window above her head, and the way she comes down the stairs, yes, and she is foreboding, but she is foreboding and she needs help to be, but we don't want to take it too seriously, but obviously we can't be laughy, and sometimes you get too sinister and it doesn't play sinister, then it sounds laughy, and so treading that was a little bit problematic. And then of course she's throwing out little insults here and there, and the main character she's still optimistic about the whole thing. So I didn't want to be too heavy, and it's treading a fine line. It's comedy in some ways. Dramatic comedy is some of the hardest stuff to score because of that issue of how to tell the story. So yes, she's the bad stepmother, and we need to bring her in. So all right, so she's entering the house.
I told her what would come of hiring that Irish maid. Lady Octavia Huntington.
Rather more plump than I expected. Your uncle vouched for your work ethic. I hope I'm not wrong to trust him.
Oh, in Sweden, I took care of the cows all myself.
Good heavens! I dare say your life here will be more refined.
Okay, your John Williams is showing.
But there you go. I mean, we had to be careful. I think my thought exactly was yours. Oh, she's coming down the stairs. This has to be sinister, and it does. But I played it, and I started out much more sinister, and it was like too goofball-y in a weird way, because it's not a Disney film, or it's not like woo. Right. It is woo, but just a little bit. So
I actually thought you took it a little easy on her, as opposed to your scene, which is your first scene, which is darker than mine would have been. You made this one lighter than I would have made it. I could not tell, even though I know how this film goes, watching the film with your scoring, I do not know how dangerous this woman is. I don't know how mean she's going to be. She's more mysterious to me through your music than mean.
Right. Well, and this is important because you've now seen it twice, but when and again, thinking that's actually a really good point. And that's why I think the sinister, darkly sinister didn't play too well for me, is because we don't know, and the main character doesn't know who this woman is yet. In fact, she's like, who is this person? Oh, and she's hopeful, and I'm gonna, and in fact, even the line where she says, oh, you're gonna become educated, or you're gonna learn, that was a nasty little line to her, but she still hears it as like, oh wow, that's great, I get to learn stuff, I get to be educated and stuff. So she is a mystery. It's a mystery to us as a viewer for the first time. It's a mystery to her, and I think we're not, this isn't so black and white that it's like, oh, here's the bad guy. And in fact, she becomes more menacing as you watch, and we do that. We learn that way as much as the main character does, because in fact, the viewer, we're going through the journey with her. So that was kind of my take on that.
Yeah, your use of the bass clarinet here is particularly cool. The bass clarinet, especially the way you use it, it's a nice kind of mysterious and foreboding use, but it doesn't give everything away. It's more like, what's going on?
Well, and I don't know. And
what's going on?
That's funny. That's great. Yeah, that's kind of that way. And and I also played with what if we did the piano way up at the top. I don't know how well you can hear that, but that gives it, in just single notes. It was a little Shostakovichian
Yeah.
just to have that kind of contrast, just to give it that kind of wide sound where this is like we have no idea. In a way, it's like we have no idea who this is. I just liked it. I was like, ooh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I did
Reminds
that.
me of Indiana Jones. It reminds me of those moments in Indiana Jones where you don't know whether he's in trouble in the temple or whether he's about to get rich.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm glad you thought that. All right.
You are fortunate Madam has declined to press charges. Well, are you going to loiter there all morning? You are Esther.
Yeah?
You're right on time. Which means you're late. I told her what would come of hiring that Irish maid. Lady Octavia Huntington.
Rather more plump than I expected. Your uncle vouched for your work ethic. I hope I'm not wrong to trust him.
Oh, nej, in Sweden, I took care of the cows all myself.
Good heavens! I dare say your life here will be more refined. Esther,
Ja, madam.
Yes is the word you're seeking.
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam.
We are waiting. Take it away. We are not gluttons. Surely there's more to serve while it's still hot.
Esther, Madam is retiring for the night. You must dispose of this right away.
All of it?
Here, it is most unfashionable to eat a meal that has not been freshly prepared.
I must misunderstand.
It's simple enough.
Aren't you hungry?
Do as you're told, girl.
Esther!
Yes, madam.
You are filthy. Giles will relieve you. Come along. We're so fortunate that life on the farm left you so well-rounded. It was such a shame to lose Bridget on such short notice.
Of course, madam. Cooking is my specialty, but I don't mind helping until you find a new girl.
Your task today is of the utmost importance. I shall wait for you in my boudoir, but do not step a foot inside until you have bathed. Yes, they are exquisite, and each one a memory of the man who bought them. But I have little use for them now. Mildred is turning 17 on Sunday.
Oh, that's Santa Lucia Day. What a blessing.
We are Presbyterian.
Oh, no, in Sweden, all the girls celebrate Santa Lucia Day.
I didn't ask you to explain. Go ahead, my dove. Now, Esther, when you finish assisting Mildred, you must iron my blouse. It is my most prized possession. Last summer, when I was having my riding trousers tailored, taken in, of course, with my girl, one of the last English-speaking seamstresses in San Francisco, I'm afraid, who should burst in but Josephine Phelps, my neighbor, nouveau riche, demanding service for some contrived emergency. My girl was forced to serve her to maintain calm while I sat there for half an hour with a needle in my thigh while she ordered this. And I told my girl, as soon as she left, that I would pay her triple for the fabric if she would sell it to me and tell that little upstart that the fabric didn't come in time. Oh. Madame Phelps and her son will be in attendance at the party, and so your work must be flawless. Do you understand? Then you are dismissed. I'll hear no more of it.
Don't I have a say in my own future?
No, you have shown a complete lack of judgment.
He'll stay. He can go work for his father. William loves me, Mama.
And I realized you would never be a beauty. I thought, that's all right. You'll be brilliant like your father. But in that regard, too, you have failed irreparably. What is it?
I'm so sorry, but my shoe, it needs repair.
And?
Oh, forgive me, madam. I am no cobbler.
Nor am I.
Oh, of course not. But they are my only pair, and it has been a fortnight. So if you could pay me now, I could have them fixed.
You're in luck. Giles can mend your soul.
I see.
Is that all?
Yes, madam. skal du leve, lang skal du leve, lang skal du leve ut i 100 år. Happy birthday! Oh. And today is also Santa Lucia Day, when all the most beautiful girls wear candles in their hair to bring us light and warmth when it's cold and dark.
Shall we light them?
Yeah. Beautiful.
What on earth are you doing?
It's Santa Lucia Day, Mother.
Lucicat.
I can't think of a more foolish way to incinerate your greatest asset. Out of bed. We have much to do.
Ah, Madam Phelps, Master William.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes,
The
madam.
blouse. Are the guests arriving?
Yes.
Good. Make them wait. Iron that again.
Again? Yes, madam.
Esther? Take these to Mildred. And tell her to wear them without complaint. She's spoiling for a melodrama.
I can't believe her. She's being so gauche.
Oh, but they do look lovely with your hair.
She's exhausting. She only wants to humiliate my future mother-in-law.
You're to be married? Oh. But what about your mother?
Let her try and stop us. Oh, your poor hands. Here, take these.
No, I couldn't.
Take them, sell them. You'll mend your shoes 100 times before she ever pays you.
Nej.